The concept of a professional learning community is certainly not new. Different writers and philosophers, Ted Sizer, for example, began with something called critical friends groups, and different historical ways of looking at what is a common group of people who are choosing to focus on a specific problem. And by looking at not necessarily someone coming forward with an answer right away, but working through what those issues are in a very collegial environment. Unfortunately, the term PLC has been co-opted, and it has, if you look now, people say, well, I'm going to this workshop on new reading strategies, and that's my PLC. Well, going to a workshop and learning new strategies is terrifically important. People need to improve efficacy. Teachers need to improve their efficacy. I can do this when looking with all of the different issues that kids bring to us just by walking through the door in a school. But that's not a learning community. And the climate and the culture that needs to exist so that this and this is adult learning we're talking about in a PLC, which is different from the pedagogy that we use within the classroom. So there are a lot of different elements that have to be absolutely nurtured within a school through leadership. And by leadership, I'm using that in the broadest terms. Teacher leaders, curriculum leaders, administrators. There are a lot of different leaders within a school. And the structure of this community can be varied. What it is not is we are required to go to our grade level meeting on Tuesday at 3 o'clock, and we'll stay there for 45 minutes. That's also not a learning community. People will say, but that's a grade level meeting, which is also necessary. The idea that if you are in a learning community, you're not supposed to be doing these other things. That's a fallacy in my view. And another example for a learning community is that it has to be data driven. So once a problem within the group has been identified, then we look at the data. Unfortunately, people will, especially principals, are very guilty of this. They'll go to a workshop, they'll see something, they'll come back and say, look, everybody needs to learn how to do this, now do it. And without looking at the data within the school and identifying a specific problem, that strategy may very well not be the right one to work towards the issue that's at hand. So by putting within the learning community the data and having that group of people determine what they want to look at and how they're going about to address that problem, it may be from that they will say, we need to go to this particular workshop to learn this particular skill, put that in practice, that strategy with our students, and then see how it does. We need to have an attitude of continuous improvement, plan, do, check, act, right? So that as the group gets together in a very structured environment, which it's hard for people sometimes to deal with the structure of the environment, so that issue can be addressed. Sometimes what happens when teachers get together is it turns into a gripe session. And, you know, this is bad and this is bad and I can't do this and I don't have time. And all of those feelings are very important, because if you look at the stress that we are under at this particular time with the pandemic and the issues associated not only educationally with the pandemic, but with the individuals in a school individually, who had COVID, who didn't have COVID, how did you deal with COVID? And then to take on all of the issues with our kids, there is a real imperative that we have to look at how we are doing things with our kids in our school to promote student learning. So we already have this impetus. So what are we going to do about it? And, you know, how do you eat an elephant? This is a giant issue. So you eat an elephant one bite at a time. And the people involved in the process, in my view, are best able to look at who are the students that they face every day. How can we look at what their issues are? Where do we want to be? And then figure out a roadmap to get there by planning backwards. So this requires an immense amount of trust, vulnerability, for someone to say, I am really having trouble with what's going on right now. My kids aren't learning. If we base on where teachers' motives for 99.9% of the teachers involved, their motives are virtuous, they are clear, they want to care for their kids, they want their kids to learn, and the frustration comes when they see that what they're doing isn't happening. And a lot of times you look outside, it takes a vulnerability to be able to look inside and to have a very strong commitment to that that critical element. So a PLC that is facilitated well using specific protocols that lessen some of that war story griping element that can sometimes happen within meetings, and the structure of those meetings shows people who are involved that their time is valued, their input is valued, their feelings are valued, and it can be very systematic and very focused. The worst thing you can do is to call someone to a meeting and waste their time. So it I don't want to, it is an issue sometimes that in the immediacy of a problem, something has to be done right now. And I totally understand that. We've got to do something today. Let's change our behavior. Let's look at the results, and then we can change attitudes. So I understand that. And a PLC is a long-term process. So you're looking at a tension between two dynamics. So the requirement to go, I hate. It's, in my view, it's better to work with the people who volunteer, who want to be there. I don't believe it needs to be limited to a particular grade level, subject area. One of the most successful PLCs I was ever involved with was a vertical PLC. So you had people, it was within an elementary school, but everybody wasn't in kindergarten or fifth grade. There were teachers from across those groups. And to see a fifth grade teacher be vulnerable, to present an issue that with a project, this is the project, this is what I expected, and then this is what I got, and what I got and what I wanted are like this far apart. And to have a kindergarten teacher ask a question, just a question, to that teacher who was presenting her work, and the fifth grade teacher goes, oh, wow, I never thought of that. Because you get different eyes on a different, on what the issue might be. So a variety of perspectives can be very enlightening.
Does a PLC have to be localized within a school, or can it be expanded, I mean, in a way that it sort of covers a district, even like internationally, thanks to the internet, right? A Facebook group, Zoom, you know, what have you.
I totally think that the technology can be used in that way. For me, there is an ideal number, 5 or 6.
Oh, okay.
5 or 6. I don't care where they're from. I don't care what their math, ESL, elementary, chemistry, people together. The point is to practice the protocols so that the focus is on the presenter. So here's this person who's coming to a group that has built up a trust where they can be vulnerable. So within this protocol, they can say, here is my work. Here is the work that I presented. This is my plan for this project. This is what I implemented it. And here is the work that my students brought to it. It's not what I wanted. Help me look at this to improve my practice so that I can bring it back.
And
because
so,
we're looking at outcomes, right?
And so it could be cross-curricular.
Absolutely. Because you're looking, you may or may not be looking at the, you're looking more at the implementation of the teaching process. And a lot of that is cross-curricular. And you want things to be inquiry-based as far as the PLC is going. Okay, I hear what you're saying to me. I can ask you questions about things I don't understand, perhaps. And then I can say, offer through questioning, have you thought of this? Have you thought of this? Have you thought of this? And then that teacher can bring it back. Say, okay, so you're looking at a continuously improvement model. But one of the most important parts about beginning to do this is to have facilitators who have some background in understanding how to facilitate these learning communities. There's an element of data analysis. However, a lot of schools will say, oh, we have data teams. Well, that is a part, but a data team may say, okay, if we've looked at our standardized test data, and here are the elements within your reading scores that your students are not succeeding in, and then they go, here. So the teacher now says, okay, what am I supposed to do now? And through the learning community, by working through that test data, then identifying if there's somebody within the group, somebody within the school who is being more successful, perhaps you can look at that, have that person bring something to the table, you work on that, and then you implement and come back again with another data assessment. One of the pieces that is also extremely important in this work, in this trust piece, is that because there was not the learning that a teacher expected does not necessarily mean that this is a bad person. And in looking at how to coach a teacher, the onus is off this person. It is not a personal. We're looking at the data. Let's try this. You did this well. Let's build on that. Let's look at this. I mean, it's human nature. If I build on what I'm good at, that's one thing. If I take what I'm not so good at and get better, that's also a good thing. So the benefits of doing this are long-term, and the commitment it's significant. Teachers can't do this without support from their school building, from their administrator. You need time, which is a premium. A lot of people look at resources as money. For schools, the resource is time. And perhaps some professional development for the facilitators within this. And it is school teacher leaders to work with, to go into smaller groups and to practice their craft. In the scaffolding of building a school that has different professional learning communities, it may start small. You start with this group, and then each one of those groups starts a group.
Yes,
And then
right,
this
right.
group gets back together
Mm-hmm.
so that they can share what they're doing well, and they have continuous learning as facilitators.
And the groups meet up with each other, things like
Right,
that, right?
right. It's
Okay.
a beehive.
Yes, exactly. A facilitator of a PLC, do they have to have any specific training or traits or education, or just a leader?
They do need, in my view, some specific development using protocols that look at student work. And the protocols and structures to keep the focus on the student work and the instruction so that people don't get off track. So, and that it takes a certain type of person. An authoritarian person may or may not work well
Right.
in this particular circumstance. So, but yes, I believe that there need to be strong facilitators and they need development.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ramez.